Waukeen was passing through the courtyard in the kingdom of Valencia. Valencia is the kingdom where Waukeen was originally from. This is where he grew up his entire life. As he traveled after he got older, he went to many other kingdoms, he went to other villages and towns in between, and this is how he kind of made a name for himself, how he became so renowned, so legendary. As he was going through the courtyard, thinking about how nice it was to be back in his original home, he observed a large group of people gathered around. He walks over to where this group of people are, and there's a lot of yelling and talking and cheering somewhat even. And as he stood there trying to figure out what the crowd was looking at, he sees over the crowd into the middle. There seems to be like this large group of men, maybe 15 to 20 of these men that were surrounding what appeared to be a young boy who was maybe around 15 years old, along with 4 guards that were around him. And as he looked in and he saw this young boy surrounded by these 4 guards, they seemed to be protecting him from this large group that was surrounding him. And this group of men, some did have swords, some had knives, some had swords, but there was still this crowd, this huge crowd. You know, there could have been 50 or more spectators watching this whole thing go on. Some quietly, but some were yelling out things as well. So Waukeen walks through the crowd and gets a little bit closer and a little bit closer. And as he watches this whole entire situation go down, he just kind of sits there and observes. He doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't know what's happening exactly. And so before he gets involved, he just wanted to see what was happening. So he sits there, he watches for 30 seconds, give or take, as he sees this group of men kind of lunging towards some of the guards, like almost like trying to find an opening to get in. And the guards kind of have their backs towards this young boy in the middle, and they have their swords drawn and they're prepared, they're ready. And this group is yelling things at them, picking up things, throwing it at them, trying to close the distance. And it's almost like they're building confidence in order to get to that point of attacking. So after about 30 seconds of Waukeen watching this, he saw enough. He doesn't know what's happening, but he knows this boy appears to be frightened. These guards also appear to be frightened, though they are holding their ground. They're doing their best, but this is a very large group of men. So Waukeen steps in and he kind of yells out to them, like, what's going on here? And several of those men had turned towards Waukeen and they were like, mind your own business. Waukeen kind of smirks and he's like, this doesn't seem like this is something that I can turn around and walk away from. Several of the men laughed at him, and one of the men yelled out, if you don't move on, you too will fall to this sword. And Waukeen kind of smiled a little bit and he says, okay, you've made it pretty clear what I need to do here. And he kind of says out loud, you can't expect me to leave at this point. And about that time is when several of the men rushed him. And as the first one gets to him, he swings his sword downward at Waukeen. Waukeen's kind of just moves out of the way a little bit, lets the sword go by, and he just kicks the guy. Guy goes flying back, hits the ground. About that time, a couple more are rushing in from the side. And when they rush in, he moves out of the way as they swing wildly, and he's dodging, moving, and just avoiding all these strikes. Well, as one of those strikes comes by, again, he steps out of the way as it goes by. He grabs the guy's arm and takes the sword out of his hand, almost like breaking his wrist as he does it. Takes the sword from him and punches the guy. The guy goes flying back. As soon as he hits that guy, the other person's coming in with a sword, and he deflects and he deflects, he blocks, again, punches this guy, then kicks him, knocks him to the ground. So this other few are pushing in at the same time that he's watching all of these people around him, and he's watching the boy and the guards, and he sees the guards trying to shuffle towards the gates of the castle, but he still sees there's still well over 10 guys standing in between them and the gates, and those guys are still trying to get towards the boy while these other men are attacking Waukeen. So Waukeen's kind of seeing this, and he sees they're not making very much headway. So he gets a little more aggressive and decides to start pushing towards the boy. And as he goes in, he's making pretty short work of these guys that are attacking him. He's hitting them, knocking them down. They're swinging wildly, obviously no training, and he just quickly knocks them down, punches them, kicks them, and he's intentionally not trying to kill these men, though they're trying to kill him, and he believes may even be trying to kill that boy. He doesn't know the full situation, so he feels a little uncomfortable just trying to kill people. He did insert himself into this, but he also recognizes such a huge skill difference that he doesn't really have to kill anyone. And at this point, they haven't gotten to him enough to a point where he feels like, I need to do that. So because of that, if he doesn't have to kill, he doesn't want to. And so he tries to disable these men, and that's exactly what he's doing. He's knocking them down, knocking them unconscious, breaking a few bones on a few here and there, but nothing where he's killing anybody. Once he's gotten through another couple of those men, they seem to have kind of gotten a little scared, and they started running. They started dispersing because he's taken out maybe a quarter, maybe a little more over a quarter of them by himself without even being hit once. The rest of them realize, hey, I'm in danger, so they decide to go. Whenever they leave, Waukeen gets over towards the guards and the boy, and the guards are thanking him, and the boy's like, who are you? Who are you to just save us from this group, this mob? And Waukeen says, my name is Waukeen. And as soon as he says that, the eyes light up of everybody around. And the crowd also heard what was said, because they too were wondering who this was that just stepped in and helped. And the guards, their eyes got big. The boy's eyes also got big. It's almost like he's heard of them. And then the crowd, you hear a gasp, and you hear them starting to talk among each other, and saying who knows what. And he kind of looks around, Waukeen, trying to figure out, is there anybody else coming? What else is the situation? And the boy was like, well, will you walk with us to get me the rest of the way? Waukeen thinks about it for a second, and he says, yes, I'll make sure you get to where you're going safely. And all the guards start walking. He walks with them, and as they're going, Waukeen's like, so tell me who you are. And the boy says, oh, I'm Prince Channing. And Waukeen immediately stops, and he bows out of respect. And the boy's like, no, thank you so much, you helped me, thank you, please don't bow, please just come with us, I want to thank you once we're safe, once we're inside. And they go inside, they get inside of the castle, and the boy's like, please follow me in here. I want you to talk to my father, the king. He'll be so happy to know that you helped. And Waukeen obliges. So as they go through the corridors and they get to the king's throne room, there's guards posted up out front. Now, the guards that were with the prince were still with him. And Waukeen's the only one who's not actually part of the king's guard at this point with the prince. So when they get to the doors open, they all start to walk in, but the guards stop Waukeen, the guards that were posted at the door, and they say, you can't bring any weapons in here. And everybody stops, the 4 guards that were with the prince himself, and they all turn and look. Waukeen just looks at them for a second. He doesn't really like to separate from his weapons. And when they asked him, hand their weapons over, he hesitated, and he looked at them. He looked at them both in the eyes. And once he looks them in the eyes, they started to kind of reach for their weapons, and they kind of put their hands on the hilt of their sword. And they're looking at him. They look at each other. They look back at him. And Waukeen then starts to smile a little bit, and he says, "Sure, no problem." And he pulls his sword, hands it to him, pulls a dagger, hands it to him. And that was all he had. And they allow him to go through. And then everybody's kind of stress level lowered a lot. And the prince smiled, and he's like, come on, come on. They go in, and they go up through, and there's a fairly large group of people on either side of the main hall to get up to the king, who's sitting on the throne at the end. And the prince runs up to the king, hugs him, and immediately starts telling him what was going on. And at this point, Waukeen's still walking up through the middle. He sees up ahead a cloaked figure who's standing next to the king. And he can only assume this is the magical advisor for the king, who normally kings would have. And they are known to have magical abilities, but they also have a lot of knowledge. They're very wise. So they usually tend to be advisors for kings or people of importance. So Waukeen's walking up, and he sees the advisor, and he sees the king, and the prince is telling him all about it. As Waukeen walked closer, he got to a certain point, almost like a just known line that sat in front of the throne area. And once he got there, he bowed, and he bowed out of respect to the king. And he heard Prince Channing, talking to the king and telling him, how he had gone out with the king's guard. He was getting his medicine. He was staying out in the light as he was told to do. But on the way back, that's when he was surrounded by this mob who was yelling at him and saying all kinds of mean things. And that was when they were surrounded, and the king's guard were protecting him, but they were outnumbered severely. And that's when he pointed at Waukeen, and he says, and then this man saved us. He came out and saved us. He came out of nowhere. And he just quickly dispatched all these people in the mob, and the rest ran away in fear. And I told him that he should follow me back here. I wanted him to meet you. And the night, Waukeen, kept his head bowed the whole time listening to this. And the king just stared at the knight as he heard Channing telling him all of this information. And he hugged his son, and he was, saying, I'm just glad you're okay. And Channing just kept talking and kept talking. He was a very spirited young man. And the king kept staring at Waukeen, and he goes, okay, thank you for telling me all of that, Channing. And he's like, knight, stand up. And so Waukeen stands, and when he stands, the king's like, what is your name? And that was when Waukeen said, I'm Waukeen. And again, everybody in the room just kind of gasps. They're like, what? This is Waukeen. And the king's eyes widened, and even the advisor, he even recognized the name. His eyes widened. And that was when the king was like, I thought I knew you. I knew you. I recognized your face. He's like, I'm the one who knighted you many years ago, back when you were just barely a man. You barely were a man at that time. But I knew you from then. And I've heard so much about all the things you've done over these years, all of these places you've gone, and the people you've helped and saved. And your stories are legendary. We've heard all about you. We were so happy to know that someone from our kingdom has done so much good out in the world, and we get to hear about it. And now you're back, and it's so exciting. And then when you come back, you save my son from this mob. It was meant to be. And we are so happy to have you back here. It was then that Drogoth, the advisor, the magical advisor to the king, came over to the king while he was exclaiming all this to Waukeen, and he whispers in the king's ear. And when he whispers into the king's ear, the king's eyes kind of like widened a little bit, and he was almost like, yeah, and he kind of nods and agrees. And then he yells out for everybody to leave the room. So when he yells out for everyone to clear the room, he tells Waukeen, you stay. And even the prince, he told the prince, you need to leave. So everyone's clearing out of the room, even the guards, everybody's gone. So it's just Drogoth, the magical advisor, the king, and Waukeen. The king steps down all the way onto the floor where Waukeen is standing with the advisor. And he begins to explain, my son has an illness, and we don't know what the cause is. We don't know what's causing it, and we believe it is going to be fatal. He's had so many doctors come visit. Nobody can explain what's happening. The best thing they've gotten is, he needs to be in the sun to give him more energy. They're giving him medicines and herbs, which is why his son went out, was to go to the herb shop to get some medicine to help with some of the symptoms that he's going through, because he has a lot of pain, and he has low energy, he's fatigued, lethargic, he has no appetite, so he's kind of a very small, slender boy, and they're just very concerned about his health, and they don't know what's causing it. Drogoth has heard that there is a scroll that exists somewhere not far away, they believe, and this scroll has the ability to heal. It has been highly sought out. They've sent people out several times to find it. The illness is not something that they want people to know about. They don't want them to know that the prince, the heir to the kingdom, is dealing with this illness that may wind up killing him. They're already having hardships in the kingdom when it comes to financial stability and many other issues. And so they want people to think that at least the lineage is safe, and that the kingdom has an heir and it will be protected. So they've been trying to keep it quiet that Channing is suffering from anything. Very few people know. They've been sending out these guards to find this scroll, but it seems like every time they send these guards out, they get to a certain point and they never hear back. And now for months and months and months, they've sent out one after another. They have some of their most trusted guards that they've sent. They found other knights that were trusted with this information and sent them out, and they just never hear back. And they don't know why. They don't know what's happening. They just know that they always seem to get to this one town that's a little bit to the east. And when they get to this town, they are supposed to be meeting a woman there who says that she knows where this scroll may be located. So they decide, okay, we'll send everybody, every time they hear about that, they get them to that point and they send people directly there. And from there, they never hear anything else. And it's been a few months of doing this. So they've had several go out, but they just don't know what's happening. And so they asked Waukeen, would you be willing to do this? Would you be willing to save my son, the prince, and save this kingdom, essentially? He thinks to himself for a minute, trying to figure out if this is something that he should do, the quest he should embark on. While he's thinking, Drogoth kind of steps forward and he's like, the king would be willing to pay you very, very handsomely, and he will also give you land. You can build a home and have a place that's yours here in this kingdom. And of course, you will always have the favor of the king. This would be something that it's almost impossible to put a reward on, because you would be ensuring the longevity of the king and his lineage and protecting this entire kingdom essentially by giving life back to Prince Channing. When he says that, the king agrees. He's like, yes, I will pay you so much money. I will make sure you have all the land you could ever want. I don't know what else to do. I'm at a point where I don't know what else I can do. I've tried so much. And so Waukeen hears all this, but it really doesn't matter to him, because money is not what he's looking for. Land is not what he's looking for. Though it would be nice to have a home here again, because he's lost so much in the past and his family is gone and he's all that remains, and they lost the land they once had. And so he kind of thinks this would be nice to rebuild and have these things. But again, that's not really why he was thinking about doing it. He really wanted to do it because as he reflects back and he thinks about meeting Channing, he thinks about how innocent and good-hearted this boy seemed to be. And to him, that's what stands out, is he wants to help those who need it, and he wants to help those that deserve it. And it doesn't matter what social tier you're on, he always wants to help. So because of this, Waukeen agrees. After thinking about it for a few seconds, he's like, you know what, I do want to help. And the king excitedly throws his hands up. Drogoth kind of starts to smile and he nods his head yes. And then he says, when you find this scroll, because I believe you will, when you do, bring it directly to me and the king, but I need it in my hands. I have the ability to unlock this scroll and to use the magic in it to heal the prince. And Waukeen just kind of looks at him for a second, looks at the king and looks back, and he's like, okay, I can do this. I will find this scroll and I will bring it back and I will help you save Prince Channing. They ask, do you need anything from us? And Waukeen just says, tell me where this village is. What is the woman's name that I need to speak with? And they tell him, go to this village. This is her name. She's somewhere in there. We don't know the specifics. We just know that that's where she's supposed to be. After Waukeen is told where the village is and is told what the woman's name is, he looks at them and says, this is all I'm going to need. I'll be back with this scroll. He turns around and he walks out of the court.